that adoptees are often born into trauma and they carry complex PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that that's true for all adoptees? And if so, how do you help adoptive parents see this not as a problem, but as a truth to hold with compassion?
This is probably going to be controversial.
I
My
love
response
it. Bring
to
on the
this.
controversy.
But I really do believe that every adoptee carries this. I do believe it is true for all adoptees. Now, whether it's uncovered or surfaces,
Mhm.
that it's up to them to allow this stuff to be revealed. Usually, the way you notice it is in relationship, is when you recognize negative patterns, is when you recognize people either leaving or you leaving before they do because you don't want to be abandoned. These different patterns that show up in adoptees' lives. But it's more than just that.
Welcome to the Adoption Roadmap Podcast, your go-to guide through the beautiful, complex, and transformative journey of adoption. I'm Rebecca Greenspan, a single mom through adoption consultant for over a decade, author of the Adoption Roadmap book, and your trusted guide. In each episode, we dive into real experiences, expert insights, and the raw, honest truths that you will need to navigate your journey. Whether you're just beginning, in the thick of it, or well past placement, you'll find support and community here to help you navigate this unique path with confidence and love. Adoption isn't all rainbows and butterflies. It is life-changing and worth every bit of effort. Let's learn, grow, and journey together on the Adoption Roadmap Podcast. She was adopted 7 weeks after birth, after being in the arms of 4 different caregivers-ish, and 2 attempted abortions. For decades, Julie Brumley lived in a trauma response she couldn't name, functioning, achieving, even earning a master's in counseling, but frozen inside. It wasn't until her body started speaking louder than her mind that she discovered somatic healing, and everything changed. Today, she's the founder of Coming Home to Self, a trauma-informed coaching platform for adoptees, and she's helping others heal the very wound she once thought might destroy her. She's raw, radiant, spiritual, and not afraid to dance it out on Instagram. In this episode, we're diving deep into the body, the nervous system, and how healing the primal wound starts not in the mind, but in the moment. Get ready to feel this one. Welcome, Julie. I am so glad I found you over Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here. I'm honored, really. I'm honored
Aw.
that you discovered me. Thank you.
You are so welcome. I want to start with something fun.
Yeah.
I want to start by giving something to our listeners. So I'm going to ask you to walk us through an exercise for when we're feeling emotionally triggered.
Yeah, I have a wonderful exercise for this. It's actually a freebie that anybody can get. It's called the Processing Emotions Exercise. Surprise, surprise. But it starts really with identifying and naming whatever the situation is that triggered you. Being able to name it and face it is huge because I find that our triggers are our teachers. And a lot of people use different terminology, activation, but for me, I like the alliteration of triggers being our teachers. So with that, knowing whatever that triggering event is and noting it, I'm a very big believer in writing things down. There's a lot of research that has been done on that and how it accesses a different part of the brain. So whether it's putting it in your phone, which is one way to do it, or I highly advise and suggest writing it down. Write down whatever the trigger is that you're facing. Then the next step is notice where you feel those emotions in your body. And this is really difficult, specifically for adoptees, because in a lot of ways we've been disconnected. A lot of times it will show up in your heart, like very, very fast beating heart, or it'll show up with like tension in your head. At least for me, initially, that's where it started. I had a lot of headaches and I had a lot of neck tension. And I'll talk about why that is a little bit later, but it's noticing where it lives in your body and writing that down. And then note what thoughts are following that. What's happening in your mind? Like, I am feeling defective, or I am feeling like I'm not enough, or I can't do anything right, or I'm just an inconvenience. Just write down, literally, it's like stream of consciousness. Write down whatever it is that you notice your brain is saying. Then step 4 would be note the actual feelings that you are feeling. And this is actually interesting because people think emotions and feelings are exactly the same thing, but emotions hold an energetic charge and a frequency in our body, whereas feelings are a part of a loop within our mind. There's a connection, but the thought feeling loop triggers the emotion. So with all of that, I have feeling sheets that I share with my clients that actually name different categoried feelings. And so I ask them, look at that. What feelings are showing up for you? Because I've noticed, even with myself from the very beginning, I couldn't name them. I didn't know how to actually put words to what I was feeling. So seeing them and being able to go, oh, I feel really disheartened or discouraged or turmoil or whatever it is that shows up, you write that down as well. You journal those feelings out. Then the next step, step 5, is what is the knee-jerk reaction that you had to this trigger? What did you do right away? How did you react? There isn't a pause here usually when we're triggered. There's usually a reaction. So what was that? What did you do? In an instance for me, a lot of times when I'm triggered, what I usually do is I shut down. I clam up. My body collapses. So it's, what do you do? Or do you lash out? Do you attack because you feel defensive? Whatever it is, it's what is that knee-jerk response? So note that. Then step 6 is, what are the core needs that are not being met here? Because with every single individual, there is a deep-seated need that we have that we don't usually know how to communicate. And I also have a sheet that has all those core needs on it that they can look at and go, is there meaning that is missing? Am I missing connection? What is it? And once they're able to identify that, then it's now, how do I change this reaction, this knee-jerk response, by offering myself this core need that I've now identified? So if it's, I don't feel understood, I don't feel heard, whatever that may be, a lot of times that's because we don't know how to articulate whatever it is that we're feeling. So it's taking the time to give ourselves the compassion, accept where we are, and recognize our voice matters. And sometimes it's writing down whatever it is that we need to communicate. That's meeting that core need of, I need to understand myself first before I can actually communicate it to be understood. So it's offering ourselves that nurture, if you will, to be able to figure out what it is that we need to communicate in that situation. If it is, I really want to be understood and heard. And then it's, could something else be true in this moment? Am I missing something? Meaning, let's say we've just cycled through all of that and we're still not feeling settled. It's, maybe the evidence that I have is from potentially a past traumatic event that I am projecting onto my present that isn't actually happening, but my body thinks it is. So what else could be true in this moment? That could be anything. It could be they're just having a really hard day and it's not about me. It's figuring out those different things and processing through them. Once you practice this consistently, you can do it without actually journaling. It can just happen very, very quick in your mind. Like, oh, that was the trigger. Okay. Oh, I noticed it in my chest. That's the thought. Like, it happens pretty quickly once you practice it. And a lot of my clients have used it, printed it out, offered it to others. It's been one of those things that's been really useful for them. So I hope that was helpful.
Ooh, I love that. And I love the whole connection of your feelings and what's actually happening in your body physically, which is what somatic healing is, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks. Tell us again how people can get their hands on this exercise written out for them.
Yeah. Well, if you go to my website and log in, like actually become, a member, give me your email, it'll be one of those freebies that you can access. I can also offer you the link so that they can actually access it. So you can put it in the show notes. It's
Wonderful.
easy to access. Yeah.
Perfect. We will do just that. I'm curious when you first realized your body was speaking for your own trauma. Before we go on, we're going to take a quick break, but don't go away. We still have so much to talk about. Hey there, Adoption Roadmap fam. Are you ready to take the next step on your journey to parenthood? If so, head over to our website and take our quiz. It's called, Are You Ready to Adopt? It's not just about testing your knowledge. It's about making sure you're emotionally and practically prepared for the beautiful, complex journey of adoption. Let's make your dream of parenthood a reality. Go to rgadoptionconsulting.com and take the Are You Ready to Adopt quiz today. That's rgadoptionconsulting.com. The quiz is free, and it will let you know where you are in the process and if you're ready to jump into your adoption journey. I'm curious when you first realized your body was speaking for your own trauma.
You know, the adoptees talk a lot about coming out of the fog, which I'm sure you've heard that phrase. And then there's also Maslow, I think is the name, came up with levels of consciousness of this. And so there's variations of this. I knew probably around 15 years ago when I first was smacked across the face in my master's program. I mean, not literally, but that's how I felt when my professor said to me, when she found out I was adopted, she said, Julie, you need to find your birth family because there's skeletons in your closet and you're going to harm people. And I was like, what? Like, harm people with what? I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, that was my first coming out of the fog moment. You know, you think of when addicts, which is where my training is, I have addictive behaviors is what I got my master's in. And you think of an addict being in denial. That was me in that moment, completely in denial. I connect those two a lot. And when that happened, it was like this light bulb went off and I was like, but my adoption did nothing. What do you mean? And she was like, it did, and you need to deal with it. And so that was the beginning of me realizing that something was wrong, if you will. There wasn't something that needed to be fixed, but something was off. And it honestly spoke to something that I'd been wondering about for a long time, but didn't know what to do with, because as you've probably learned, a lot of the stuff that we experience and deal with is pre-verbal. So we don't have the language to know how to put words to what we're feeling. So that's why tuning into my body. And honestly, I didn't really start doing that until about 5 years ago. And even then it was new to me and I didn't know what to do with the information. My lower back really hurt. My hips really hurt. My shoulders really hurt. Like I said, my neck really hurt. I ended up getting psoriatic arthritis. Like, all this stuff started happening, like conditions, if you will, started occurring in my life. And it was these layers that were being uncovered that I began to realize, I wonder if this is linked to something emotional. Like, I wonder if there's something underlying here that I just don't understand. And she was the beginning of that. My professor started that. And as I started exploring my body and what was going on and understanding the different energy centers that are connected to the vagus nerve and the spinal cord, I began to realize this all makes sense. No wonder that I don't feel safe and why I've been having issues in my hips. No wonder that my heart beats really fast when whatever happens, because I'm feeling this loss that I now have words for. Like, I began to be able to name what was going on. And so I don't have like a first when I realized it. It was more like gradual. And the somatic healing started about 3.5 years ago. I started a program with, this is funny, with a person who I actually mentored and was in my addictive program for a while, my codependency program. And I knew there was a missing piece. I just didn't know what it was. And once I found that piece through her posts on Insta, she started posting and I was like, oh my gosh, am I an imposter? What is wrong with me? How can I not fix? So it was there. How can I not fix what's going on in my body? And that's where it began, was me actually starting to really learn how to listen to my body.
What do you think your professor saw in you that she was like, you need to deal with this? Like, what was she responding to?
I mean, it was so long ago. It was in 2010. I think um, she was a foster parent. So she already had the history of knowing and experiencing. So when I said I was adopted, it triggered something for her. But I
Yeah.
don't know. She didn't tell me what she saw. She just immediately pulled me aside. And like, it was, yeah, I mean, like she just knew. And I was obviously very taken aback by that. But from her own life experience, knew that there was something inside of me that if I didn't access it, I would do damage. And
Did you
I
want to
believe
punch
she
her
was right.
first?
Huh?
Did you want to punch her in the face first?
I didn't actually. I
Oh,
okay, so I'm a really I don't know if you know the Enneagram very well,
yeah.
but
I
I'm like,
don't know it very well, but yeah.
you understand. I'm a
Uh-huh.
perfectionist. I'm a one. And
Uh-huh.
so if anybody in my life who's in a position of authority that I respect says something to me, I'm just like,
Mm.
yes, ma'am, I will do whatever you tell me. There's no like question. It definitely shocked me. But I do things 100%. So if she tells me that it's going to cause problems, I'm going to go figure out how to weed out whatever those problems are. And that's when
Yeah.
I started my search.
So you said that you've said somewhere,
Yeah,
dug deep, right?
sure did. I was very
Bef-
impressed with your questions.
Before our conversation, that adoptees are often born into trauma and they carry complex PTSD.
Hmm.
Do you think that that's true for all adoptees? And if so, how do you help adoptive parents see this not as a problem, but as a truth to hold with compassion?
Yeah, it's such a good question. This is probably going to be controversial. My
I love
response
it. Bring
to
on the
this.
controversy.
But I really do believe that every adoptee carries this. I do believe it is true for all adoptees. Now, whether it's uncovered or surfaces,
Mhm.
that it's up to them to allow this stuff to be revealed.
Mhm.
Usually, the way you notice it is in relationship, is when you recognize negative patterns, is when you recognize people either leaving or you leaving before they do because you don't want to be abandoned. These different patterns that show up in adoptees' lives. But it's more than just that. It can be addictive behaviors. We are overrepresented in that population. We're
Mhm.
overrepresented in the prison population. And I know I don't even think the stat is accurate, but that we're 4 times more likely to commit suicide as a population. There's a lot here. And with that, and the other thing that I think is interesting about this is CPTSD is not in the DSM 5. It doesn't exist in the DSM 5, which
What's CP?
CPTSD, so complex PTSD,
Complex. Okay.
C
I
dash,
never.
yeah.
Okay.
Which I found really interesting, probably because they're still doing research and whatever, but it is real. We carry it in ourselves.
Yeah.
And where this even came up for me was, I don't know if you've ever heard of Paul Sunderland. He's a therapist
Mm-mm.
in the UK, and he did an hour-long, like, teaching on addictive behaviors, adoption, and complex trauma. And
Mm.
as I listened to that, I was like, that's when it first dawned on me, like, oh my gosh, this is really what happens to adoptees. They just don't know. And
Mm.
they're working their whole lives to get back to that place of, I'm inherently worthy. And so, because of that, they're reaching to outside sources to be outside of them, outside circumstances, to belong, to fit in, which I know we're going to be talking about that in a minute. How we, as adoptive parents, which I clearly am not one, but how we hold that with compassion and don't see it as a problem to fix is we just notice when those emotions show up that seem uncharacteristic or disproportionate to whatever the event is, because it will more than likely happen. And when we notice that, we just hold the space for it. Like, I'm here if you need to talk. I'm here. I know there's stuff going on, but a lot of times they don't even know what that stuff is. So it's us being willing to not have to fix it, because Here's the problem. A lot of adoptees do feel like they are a problem that needs to be fixed. We're not. But that's what we believe. And so with that, anytime an adoptive parent affirms that as, what do I need to do to fix this? How can I help you? Da, da, da. It's a whole different ballgame when you've got a parent who's willing to sit with you in your sadness, to sit with you in your discomfort, who's not trying to solve whatever the problem is, but is just trying to allow it to move through you. Because as I just talked about in the processing emotions exercise, our emotions do hold frequencies. And if we don't allow them to move through us, they get stuck. And then what ends up happening is it shows up in our body. And so many adoptees have talked to me about this where I didn't even realize that I was holding that. And my lower back was really hurting. And then they'd make the correlation to it had to do with this, connection issue from when they were younger. And all of that ends up developing over time if we allow ourselves to hold that space. And holding space just means being present with and accepting where they are, not trying to fix it.
I love that because a lot of us, me included, are fixers. We want to fix everything.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And it has to be an intention to say to yourself, no, don't try to fix, just sit and listen. And I think that's a good overall parenting lesson.
It is, yeah.
And an overall human lesson. I just talked to an adoptee last week on the podcast, Wilson, who was really talking about the first time that somebody other than his family just sat and listened to his story and gave space for that and how cathartic it was. Right. So just sitting and listening. The other thing you said was that sometimes a behavior will be kind of
uncharacteristic
uncharacteristic. Right. And I'm also guessing, and I'm kind of thinking of my own son who goes inward a lot. And so that could look not outward, but very quiet and inward and to themselves. So it's recognizing that as well.
Oh, yeah. There's the acting out adoptee, and then there's the acting in. I was one of those. I was more an inward acting out. Like I held it all inside of me and had all of these questions that I didn't feel comfortable asking. It was the 70s. My parents didn't know how to hold that space for me. I don't blame them at all, but they didn't know. They were taught that I was a blank slate. So of course I don't have any problems, so I held on to all of that. My brother, on the other hand, was more of the acting out adoptee. So it's just really interesting how we choose to go about those things. And it really was similar to what Wilson was that what his name was? Yeah. I did actually watch that clip. What was interesting to me about that was when somebody actually for the first time was able to reflect back my experience and understand my experience. It was this feeling of like a deep soul sigh. Like I am not alone in this. And I've been feeling that way for a long time. Like nobody gets this, A
deep soul sigh. I love that.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
That explains so much of putting words to feelings sometimes of relief or whatever. Wow, that's cool. Can you define, or how do you define somatic healing?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, that word somatic can be like a big word. All it is body. That's soma means body. And what's interesting in what I've already been talking about is how our bodies hold and keep the score, as Bessel van der Kolk talks about, so much information that our bodies can end up becoming our mind because of that information that they hold. And so in order to heal it, we have to actually get into our body, like I talk about in that processing emotions exercise. So somatic healing is basically, this is what's so interesting. And people, they want like this massive breakthrough, right? They want to like, give me the steps and how to do it. Well, what's interesting about somatic healing.
Well, you did give us the steps.
Yeah, I did. Well, that's just the beginning. But what's interesting about it is it's very basic. It can start with something as simple as, oh, my heart is beating really fast. I need to put my hand there and let my heart know I hear you. It's attuning to what is going on in our bodies. When I was really going through this and learning how to connect to my body, that was my go-to, was my hand over my heart, because that my heart was just beating so much, like quickly, because of the anxiety that I was experiencing in my relationships. And then I noticed I have pain in my head right here. And so I would rub it. Like, it, for me, it was my body had been screaming for so long and I had never noticed or listened. So it was the first time where I actually paused. And that's important. There is a power in the pause. There is a power in the stillness. For me as an adoptee, I kept busy all the time, doing, not thinking, and not feeling. Those things scared the bejesus out of me. So I would do, and keep myself busy. And in the process, I had these, psoriasis plaques all over my body. And I ended up getting stopped in my tracks because I could no longer move. Like, that's what ended up happening. It shut me down. And so it's being able to go, okay, I'm holding something here. I see you, almost as if you have an interaction relationship with whatever part of you is showing, smarting, if you will, and being able to tune into it. That's where the healing begins, is the awareness of it.
I'm just thinking about I'm sitting here thinking about all my aches and pains in my body.
So many people do that. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And thinking, what am I holding on to? Am I holding on to, or is this just lifting too much weights?
Like, well, it can be that too.
Yeah. How do you sometimes, like, can you talk about that? Like,
the difference?
How do you figure that out?
Well, that's a really good question. I think for me, it was a realization that I've been holding on to this pain for a long time, meaning it's been there. I've just ignored it. I have self-abandoned and pushed through, or said yes to things where I should have said no. Gaslit myself and said, "Oh, just take an ibuprofen. You're fine." Like, it's that I've got to figure out how to put words to this, but it feels as if it's deep within your tissue. It's something different than just a soreness. I even still, that my lower back still has some stuff that I carry. There's a tension and a pain, low grade pain, that is still there. Now, I don't know when that, or if that is going to go away. I still have some in my shoulders. You can tell the difference when it's not just something that goes away over time. It is something that lingers or that is recurring. So let's say something happens in your life, the triggering event happens that we just talked about, and you notice something in your body and it's a pattern. Oh gosh, when that happens, my lower back does this, right?
Yeah.
And that's really uncomfortable. So now what do I do with it? There's also charts that actually explain what happens when the body feels something, that you can look up online. And, oh, okay, so I'm trying to control a situation and I'm holding that in this part of my body. Once we're able to really connect to that and see and release it, you would be blown away. I could work with a client that is feeling pain in their body. It actually happened yesterday. I was working with an adoptee yesterday morning, and his lower back was hurting. There was a tension in his lower back. And as we went through the visualization of him connecting with his 13-year-old self, at the end, he was like, I don't feel that in my back anymore. That's the power of this, is once we connect it and release it, there's such a healing that can happen.
Do you use tapping and different modalities?
Yeah. I do. So, as a matter of fact, in the second phase, which I know we're probably going to get into, we delve into that. We come up with their own unique tapping script that they can, cool. And it takes time. I mean, because it has to be something that their body believes. Like, I literally will ask them, okay, when you say that out loud, what happens in your body? Because if your body goes, hell no, and you feel like the constriction, that's not the right phrase. Let's figure out what the right phrase is. It's intricate, but it's really helpful. And they've noticed a lot of shifts from that. So yeah, I do use tapping. Yeah, I find it
That's
very
cool.
powerful.
I love all of that stuff. You spent years stuck in survival mode.
Hmm.
You called it cycling through freeze, fawn, fight, and flight responses.
And flop, but I just didn't
And
mention that
flop.
one yet.
Okay. I think we all
Yeah.
have that flop
Yeah.
cycle. Can you describe what that looked like in your day to day life and before you discovered somatic healing?
Yeah, I think for me in my marriage relationship, that's where it showed up the most. There was
Mm,
this because that was the closest relationship, And I think for me, what I experienced was if I'm not accepted by my husband at the time, then I'm not okay and I freeze. And
mm,
then it's difficult for me to get out of it. And then I begin to fawn, please him. What does he need? How can I serve him to get him back in my not my good graces, but to get back in his good graces? What do I need to do to win him back over? Fight wasn't my real go-to, but when I got to a place where I was uh, repeatedly poked, like poking the bear, oh yeah, I would defend. I would fight for my purpose to exist because for me, I truly believed that I shouldn't exist. Like deep within me, because she attempted to abort me twice, there was part of me that felt like I was defective, broken, and shouldn't be here. And so that when the fight came out, it was me proving that I was supposed to be here and that I have a right to be here. Now, of course, I didn't know that was what was happening, but that's what occurred. Flight for me would be leaving the conversation. I don't feel safe here. I'm going to leave the conversation, whether you want me to or not. I'm going to run the opposite direction. I don't have words. I would totally clam up and leave. And then the flop response was a newer one, and it's actually newer in trauma circles. And it's basically the depressive, numb, I can't move, I can't get out of bed. And that those two, freeze and flop, can be confused. The freeze response, like the way I personally have experienced that, let's say an intimate situation is happening with us, like with my then husband, and I'd be laying on the bed and recognizing my body doesn't want to do anything. It is completely frozen. That's freezing. Versus flop is I wake up and I don't want to move. I can't get out of bed. I even moving my legs to get out of bed feels too much. And so there are grounding techniques that we can use to help us move from those places to more healthy spaces. But it's our body doing what it's supposed to do.
And at this time, had you already experienced somatic healing or played around with that at all? Or how did you kind of figure out that you needed to do something physically?
Yeah. So, no, the situation that I just described was almost the beginning of me realizing something's wrong. I don't know what this is. And it was in this room. I remember feeling like I remember my then husband leaving because he was frustrated, and I talked to a friend and I'm like, I don't even have emotion. Like, what is going on here? Like, I don't it did freeze me in every way. That was the beginning of me recognizing something. I access something that I don't understand. And so what I mean by that is when that occurred, it wasn't like I had a flashback to anything,
Mm-hmm.
which most people do with trauma. It was like this whitewash feeling of if I get close, if any intimacy happens here, they're going to leave me anyway, so I can't. And it froze me completely. And what I realized later in looking back was I was going back to a time that I didn't have words for. Those first 7 weeks of me feeling passed around, there's so many things that I didn't even realize were impacting my present from that. And that was the instance that helped me realize I have to get help because I can't do this.
And where does somatic healing come into that? Like, did somebody introduce it to you?
Well, the person that I work for now, I have my own company, but I also work for Becky in her somatic coaching container. She's the one who discovered it.
Ah, okay.
She started posting about it, and I was like, I think that's what's been missing all this time. And what was so frustrating for me was, like, I literally had been through a 6-year master's program, and they never trained us in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew what somatics was.
It's
I
too
knew
woo-woo.
that. Yeah, it is. It's becoming way more mainstream now, but I didn't have any understanding of it. And once she found it, I knew this is the missing piece, but I was so afraid. I was so embarrassed because here, you know, I had been helping people for years and had been missing this crucial piece and just felt like no wonder I'm not healed, which, by the way, I don't feel like healing is ever past tense. We will always be working on ourselves, and that's a good thing because that makes us better. So, anyway.
Yeah. So you tried out some of these techniques and it made a difference.
Oh my gosh. Like I said, basic. Hand over heart is where I started. Whenever it showed up, that's where I started. Then I moved because my head started really hurting after I started dealing with this. And I think part of that was I was trying to process all of this stuff that had been living in there for years of knowledge that I had gained. And so once I started like recognizing and doing the processing emotion stuff and getting it all out of my head, it's like my body began to come to life like it never had before and spoke to me. That sounds crazy, but it did. Like it, not in actual words, but you know what I'm saying, I think.
Yeah.
And so me being able to just do the little things, and I still, to this day, it's the daily practices that I do. I do yoga every morning. I, every night before I go to sleep, I do 2 meditations and I'm hugging. I self hug. So I'll put a hand under my arm and a hand on my shoulder, and I sometimes rock myself. But it's not that I need it. I'm not doing it in response to a trigger. I'm showing myself the love on a consistent basis. And then what that does is when a trigger does come, I can move through it way faster because I'm grounding myself throughout the day. Does that make sense?
Totally. I love that. I mean, there's so many of those examples, right? I mean, leaving a meeting and going into your next thing, stopping, taking 3 deep breaths, and then walk into the next thing. You know, there's so many of those.
Totally. Going outside and putting your feet in the grass. I don't care if you're hurt. Just do
Grounding.
it. Look up at the sky. It takes less than 5 minutes. You know, there's little things that you can do that truly make all the difference. But people think it's crazy. It shifted everything for me. Everything.
I love it. What do you think is the most common inner critic or saboteur? I don't even know where I came up with that word.
Well, you came up from it because I talk about it all the time. So if you deep dived into my stuff, there's
yeah.
So how do we soothe this voice?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So you ask about the most common, you know, what comes to my mind, and all adoptees would probably relate to this. There's that chameleon part of us where we please. And pleaser is one of the saboteurs. Now, I don't believe every adoptee has pleaser as their top, but every adoptee I've spoken to, that's difficult not to deal with on a daily basis. I have to please in order to be accepted. That is that inner critic voice. And this actually comes from an assessment that a guy came up with named Shirzad Chamine. And he wrote a book called Positive Intelligence. That's a whole other thing. We could have an entire podcast on that. And I have every one of my clients do that assessment first, because then what I know is what are their top inner critic voices. Mine was stickler, pleaser, controller. The 2 others right now that are in my world, both of them have pleaser at the top. So when you ask that question, that's what came to my mind, was that it's the pleaser. It's us feeling like we have to please everyone around us in order to be okay, that will settle us, because once everybody is okay with us, we're okay. doesn't work, but that's what the inner critic is trying to do, is trying to protect us. And so how I guide adoptees through that and how they can compassionately silence or soothe it, it's no surprise. It's by moving to the body. It's by doing little grounding things like paying attention to your breath. Let's say that voice, that negative emotion shows up and you hear, I have to do this for this person in order to be accepted, whatever the voice is. You immediately move that to your body, whether it's you pay attention and you go, okay, I hear you, pleaser. Like for me, I named her Pam. I hear you, Pam. I know that you believe you are trying to protect me, but I'm the adult now and I've got you. It's a variation of out loud parts work, to be honest. It's being able to show compassion to that part and allow it to have a voice, not shut it down, because we can't exile those inner critics, because if we do, they get louder, in my experience. And so it's being able to go, I hear you, I see you, it makes sense that you feel this way. I understand you're feeling afraid that if I don't please this person, that they will run away. But you know what? I need to be true to myself right now. And that's that interaction, having that kind of compassion with that inner critic, is how you begin to weaken its power. And it soothes it and it begins to quiet. At least in my experience, it has.
Yeah. Does it help you from not being such a people pleaser?
Yeah. So here's what's interesting. I did this assessment the first time probably 2.5 years ago. And Stickler was 10 out of 10, which I have learned is very much related to my Enneagram 1. So Stickler, everything has to be done a certain way. And their justice really matters. We have a very, very loud inner critic, like just you have to do it this way or it's not okay type of voice. So Stickler was 10 out of 10. Pleaser and controller kind of shift, but they were like 6 point something. So it's out of 10. So 6 point something and controller was like 5 point something. Either way, anything over 5 is something to be a little concerned with. Those are the voices that are loud. After about 9 months to a year of doing this work, my Stickler went down to a 7 and my pleaser and controller switched and went down as well. When I checked again last fall, my Stickler was a 4.4.
Oh, wow.
So the work that I've done to hear them, silence them in a way that's healthy, not shutting them up, but giving them a voice, because they need to rant sometimes. they just do. And so I let them. And that's a part of the processing emotions exercise too. Those voices are them. So it's writing them down and giving them the voice, and then being able to reason with them and go, I'm going to nurture this part of you because you never got it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sort of reminds me of something I talked about with people who are, what's basically thanking whatever the feeling is that you have for serving you for a certain amount of time, and then saying, but I don't need you anymore. You've served me. Thank you so much. And then pushing it aside. I go through that exercise with something within adoption for adoptive parents, but, basically saying, you served a purpose. Thank you for protecting me. I don't need this protection anymore.
Yeah.
And literally sometimes saying it out loud.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Saying it out loud. One of the things that my therapist said when I was going through EMDR and kind of dealing with a lot of these parts was she said, you don't want to exile them or tell them to leave you alone, but you do want to ask them to give you space. And when you do that, maybe ask them to go to the basement. Like, so in my mind, when they were in the living room,
your toes.
Yeah. So that's what I do. I'm like, I need a little basement time. Can you go spend some time in the basement? You're not in the dungeon. I just need a little break from you right now.
The basement is carpeted.
That's really funny. That was helpful for me. So
yeah, I love that. You also talked about abandonment becoming a superpower.
Yeah.
How do you guide adoptees to flip that trauma into strength and purpose?
Yeah. So this is connected to one of the other questions that you had posed. No one's heard it yet because you sent it to me, but about the 7 phases. These two connect. Okay. So I talked a little bit about self-abandonment before. For me, it's that that self-awareness is the first step. So we're gonna combine these two questions if it's okay with you.
Okay.
So there is a process that I take adoptees through that I myself have gone through that starts with the self-awareness, which we begin with identifying our inner voices. Like I just talked about, we do the saboteurs, we recognize them, we begin to show them compassion, bring what they say to awareness, identify those limiting beliefs, and then that's the first phase. And then
Yeah,
we
and
move
I'm
into,
sorry, by the way, I totally skipped over the 7 phases, and
oh
so here we are.
gosh,
Tell
I
us
didn't
about
read
the 7-phase healing journey.
well, that's how abandonment becomes your superpower. And the reason why is because we have this pattern. Every adoptee I've talked to has a
Yeah.
pattern similar to this. It's either I'm going to leave first, or I'm going to perpetuate the same my birth mother left me in my relationship, and basically not be secure enough or self-trusting enough to be with a partner, and then they will leave because they're like,
Mhm.
I don't I can't help you. This isn't about me anymore. It's about you healing, you know? And so you believe they're going to abandon you. So once those patterns show up, it becomes a superpower in that it propels us to heal. So this awareness that I'm talking about, the self-awareness is the first phase where we work through all the things that I've kind of already talked about.
Mhm.
Self-acceptance is next, where we actually really deal with the shoulds in our life, the
Mhm.
shame, which I have an acrostic that I learned from a podcaster named Kyle Spears that's should have already mastered everything. And we can feel that way as adoptees. I should have already mastered this. I should have already been here by now. Anytime we notice that a should is present, we have to get to that place of, I invite them to get to that place of accepting, okay, this makes sense that I'm here. And I have to own whatever those voices are now. It's accepting that I am defective voice, not listening to it, accepting it. Okay, that's been there. I'm defective. I'm broken. I'm a mistake. I will always be an inconvenience. I should never have existed. These are the ones that were mine. I'm a disappointment. I needed to get those out of my head and onto paper and accept that
Mhm.
that was my foundational limiting beliefs. Then
Mhm.
we move into self compassion, which I've talked about, hand over heart, recognizing, oh, I see you, Pam. Pam the pleaser, you're showing up. Okay. Showing her compassion and being able to go, okay, that makes sense. And then doing the EFT tapping with that. Once we've found our own unique voice and what those things are that we're trying to shift, we do the acupressure points with the EFT tapping to move those out of our body. Then we have to take responsibility and begin naming things out loud. So self responsibility is the next one. And in that phase, we name emotion, we name feeling, we allow ourselves to be uncomfortable with it for a while and take responsibility for the fact that this sucks. You know, that the feelings that we experience, the loss, the shame, the rejection that all adoptees feel, that we
Mhm.
sit with it and allow ourselves to grieve. That is the action, that is the emotion of loss, is grieving. So that's self responsibility. Then we move into self transformation, which is where we begin to actually notice the shifts happening.
This
We
is where
do
the
a lot.
superpower comes in.
Correct. This is where all the foundation that we've laid is now showing up. And they're already, like, the adoptees that have moved through this with me are already noticing this. It's really, really beautiful to see. And then the next thing is self love, which, you know, that's pretty simple. We learn how to love ourselves, but you can't just do that without awareness. You, you can't do it. If you don't know what it is that you feel
Right.
is unlovable, how
Totally.
can you actually love yourself?
Mhm.
You know? And then the last one is self belonging. This is the piece that I have found. I mean, I believe every single person that's not an adoptee as well experiences this. Whenever there's a severed sense of love and belonging, it screws with us. And there's those abandonment wounds that show up. And learning how to do that for ourselves and not get it from outside sources, that chameleon energy that we have, that's where the shift really begins to happen, when we don't need other people to tell us that we're okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I'm going to talk about Wilson again, who said this kid is such an old soul. He's like 18 or 19 years old. You should go listen to it. And has so many amazing lessons for people. But he talks about, and this goes really perfectly into my next question. He talks about deciding you're going to fit in somewhere, and that when you can decide that you don't fit in or that you do fit in, and it's just a confidence level. And if you can make that shift of walking in and saying, I belong here, I fit in here, then you do. Right. And it's just making that decision. But you talk a little, you also talk about belonging versus fitting in.
I do.
So what's the difference? And then tell us about a moment in your life when you finally felt true belonging. Before we go on, I'm going to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We have so much more to cover. Listen up, Roadmap fans. Do you have a transracial family? Maybe you've struggled to find the right products for your child's hair and skin. You're not alone. But listen, I found your solution. If you're anything like me and care about clean, natural products without harsh chemicals, you've got to check out Sweet Peach Tree. It was founded by a white mom with a black daughter who gets it. They've created safe, effective products made for melanin-rich skin and textured hair, but it's not just for them. It's for the entire family. Head to sweetpeachtree.com and use code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweetpeachtree.com. Use the code ROADMAP10 for 10% off your first order. Sweet Peach Tree, made with your family in mind. Tell us about a moment in your life when you finally felt true belonging.
Yeah. So the belonging versus fitting in debate really comes from Brene Brown. She is the one who did a lot of this research, and so she deserves the info here, or the call out, because it's not me. I took all of this from her. But
well, Brene, if you would like to come onto the podcast, we'd be happy to dig into this a little bit more. So this is your invitation. Keep going, Julie.
Someday I would love to be on her podcast, be her friend. She's revolutionized my life, to be honest. But the way that I describe it, and I talk about this in one of my teachings that I do with my clients, is fitting in, and I'll do verses so that you can hear it. So fitting in is seeking approval from others as your worth. Okay, that's fitting in. We look to others to show us that we are worthy. Whereas belonging, that worthiness actually comes from within. It's understood that it's inherent. Fitting in is changing who we are in order to be accepted. That chameleon energy that I was talking about before. I have to shapeshift in order to be accepted. That's fitting in. Belonging is letting our true selves be seen. And when you talked at the beginning, the raw, radiant, I was like, oh my gosh, that's so sweet. That's what I want to present, is this authentic, true self. And if people have a hard time with that, then they don't have to follow. I mean, sorry, but that's just the truth, because I think I've learned that belonging doesn't come from outside of me. It's within me, and my authentic self is beautiful. So that's what belonging is in that piece. And then the fitting in piece is constantly assessing and acclimating any environment we come into. I felt this as an adoptee. I'd enter a room and look around and go, who are going to be my people? Or how can I meld into whatever is going on around me? Versus belonging has to do with wholeheartedness. And this is where, and I know that's like, well, what do you mean? Well, this is where Brene did a ton of work. And it has to do with bringing all of ourselves, our body, our mind, our heart, our soul, into alignment with this worthiness that I was just talking about. And once we're able to do that and are able to practice that, that belonging kind of stays and sticks, because we're doing practices that feed it. And so things like gratitude, things like the yoga that I was talking about, those daily practices that I do to listen to my body and show my body that I hear it, and my spiritual relationship, like my relationship with God, those are the things that they're non-negotiables for me. They contribute to my ability to live wholeheartedly and to belong to myself. I don't have to shapeshift for other people. I don't. But I used to feel like I had to in order to belong. But really, what I was trying to do was fit in.
Can you feel a sense of belonging without feeling like you fit in?
Yes. And here's how I know this. When we first connect with our birth families, well, and we even feel this with our adopted families, they may not get it. They don't understand. And I don't mean that. I mean, you're an adoptive mom, and I value this so much because my adoptive mom is amazing. She has been so accepting of what I'm doing. It's hard for her to watch, to see the pain that I ended up having to go through and experience that I didn't even know until my late 40s, you know? Mm-hmm. So her watching that process has been really difficult. I don't fit in that family. I don't look like them. I don't have the genetics of them, but I belong there. And why? Because I don't need them in order to be okay. Oh, that sounds so bad. And I don't want...
I have the chills throughout my body right now. Yeah. I mean, whoo.
Well, that's the truth. And so I feel the same with my birth family. There is an otherness there because I don't have the history. I don't have the shared history. So there's the loss that I can feel. And they could be talking about memories, and I immediately get this overwhelming feeling of I wasn't there to experience that. There's absolutely nothing I can do about that besides allowing myself to sit with that discomfort and know that that's my truth, but still know I can belong here. I can still belong here whether I have the shared history or not, because we're building shared history. It doesn't, I don't need them. I hate saying that, but I don't need them to feel okay in who I am.
Yeah. Well, hopefully nobody needs anybody else to feel like they belong. And
well, it's a journey.
It's internal.
I mean, I'm not saying I have arrived in any sense, Becca, because I still struggle with this sometimes. Yeah. Like, it's difficult, but at the same time, I don't just sit in this trauma, if you will. I'm not a victim. I mean, I am a victim. I mean, I was a victim of attempted abortions and all of that stuff, but I don't let that define me. That's not who I am. And I'm not an adoptee only. I have many other labels. I'm a mom. I'm a child of God. I am somebody who helps people. I'm a helper. I'm a guide. I am not defined by what I've been victimized because of.
I'm guessing there were probably times in your life where you did feel that way, where you did define, like, okay, so for instance, when did you find out about the attempted abortions?
So after my professor said what she said, and we lived in Hawaii at the time, which was amazing. Ooh. I went home and started searching, like really searching. This was me searching. My husband at the time searched a lot before that. But it was never from me. So this was now from me. So I started searching and searching, found her. My social worker that I connected with, because I was adopted from California, which, we don't get any information from there. We get one sheet of paper. But she said to me, because I explained to her what my professor had said, she said, I know the degree that you are getting, so I'm going to send you as much as I can legally and cross out all of the names, because my birth mother at this time, this was in the early 2000s, had not filed a consent for contact form. So she said, but you need to prepare. And I was like, all right, what do you mean? She goes, because it's gnarly. She literally used that word. And I was like, okay. She said, so journal beforehand what you expect. She wasn't going to tell me over the phone. So she sent me this package. It was like 6 pages. So I got a lot compared to most people in California. And it was in there. It basically said that, it explained that at 12 weeks, she came in and attempted to abort. When they went in to do it, they found, I think it was gonorrhea first. And they said, you have to clear that up first, and then you can come back. And so then she came back at 16 weeks, and they found vaginal warts. And they were like, sorry, it's too late now. You got to clear that up. We can't do the abortion. And that's when she had to choose adoption. And what is interesting is I did not realize that after I had read that part, that I didn't read anymore. It completely fragmented my brain. Like, I remember that literally what it felt like was my brain shattered into pieces at that moment after I read it. And I have been trying to puzzle them back together ever since then to heal that part of me.
So then going back to that original statement, is like, did that define you in that moment in some ways?
I think it did.
Because I heard you said earlier, I wasn't worthy enough to keep. She tried to abort me twice, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that to me, it was like, oh, no wonder I feel all this crap that I feel.
Yeah.
Like it like made, but then I think I owned it too much. I over identified with it at that point. Like, no wonder I'm such a mess. No one, and it perpetuated all of that negative stuff. And I didn't have the tools at this point. I was just starting my master's program, So
yeah. But to go back to your point, like, you let it define you for a little bit of time. And I think that that's such a normal thing for people to do, especially in adoption. And I'm curious, do you wish you didn't have that information, or are you glad that you got it? I mean, knowledge is power, I guess.
No, I appreciate that question. It is my identity. It is a part of who I am. It is what shaped who I am. And I know and knew once I read it, I'm supposed to be here, and I'm here for a purpose.
Yeah.
And even at the time when I owned it and was very victimized by it, I knew there's something in this pain that I will need to do. I don't know what it is yet. That was there. I knew I'm here to fulfill a purpose. So let's figure out what that is. And I feel like I think I've figured that out.
Yeah. And hopefully in hindsight, it's always a good thing to know all that, because it'll allow you to work through probably things that you were already feeling, but now you can, put a little bit more meat to it and do the work. So you did have a reunion with your birth family.
I did. Yep. I'm in reunion with my birth father side. I'm in reunion with both sides, but my birth mother died in 2020. So
I'm sorry to hear that. So you found your birth family. What surprised you the most about being in reunion with them? And
with my birth mother's side, I did not feel the energetic connection that I thought I would. It actually felt I needed to detach it, and it wasn't healthy. And that was really sad for me. But I didn't feel safe with them. And I hate even saying that, but it's the truth. Like, I just didn't, there wasn't, how a lot of people talk about there was like this honeymoon phase, and it was just, I didn't feel that with that side. With my birth father's side, I did feel that. There was, and I don't know if it was because my birth mother attempted to abort me twice, so it was hard for me to even feel connected. I'm sure that's part of what it is.
Sure.
And my birth father didn't even know I existed. So, he found out 4.5 years ago. My birth mother slept with 3 guys in one night and told me that when I first met her. It's like, okay. So it was like, I'm Mamma Mia. Here I am. And we don't know who the dad is. And so he discovered that he was my father just when I discovered that I had a father, because my birth mother said he was probably dead, which he clearly is not. And I have siblings from him that I actually was just with them this past weekend at a bachelorette party for my niece. So I'm definitely in reunion. I think what it dismantled for me, what it did for me, was realize it was kind of the last nail in my belonging coffin, if you will. That sounds funny. For me to realize I don't need them in order to belong. And it not in a way that I don't need you, get away from me. We've
Yeah.
had this conversation. It was more, I began to recognize I've been seeking belonging in others, but they're
Yeah.
not where I'm going to find it. We're all fallible humans. Things are going to happen, things are going to be hard. And thankfully, they're willing to lean in and deal with the hard. I'm so, so blessed by that. But that doesn't make it easy, right? We have to navigate these things together. So I think that for me, it was knowing that once I actually found them, there was like soul clicks that happened in my body. Like I just felt like all these puzzle pieces connected because for the first time I'm looking at a face that looks like me, which I never had experienced besides in my children. So there was something very, very healing about that for sure. But I noticed I was seeking something more from them that they couldn't give me. It wasn't theirs to give.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Tell me more about that.
So I was seeking the belonging. I was seeking that whole idea that I described, fitting in and belonging. I was seeking that from them.
Oh, okay. So you were seeking something that he couldn't give you because you had to find it in yourself. Got it.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes. And, there's those the pieces of them that feel like we're never going to be enough. We're never going to be able to fix you. And I'm like, I don't need fixing. I'm good. But they feel similar feelings that I feel, but on the other side.
Yeah.
They feel the same loss. They didn't have me for 47 years. I'm 51 now, but they didn't have that. And so they experienced the loss just as I did, just differently.
Yeah.
So it's being able to realize that I don't need them to understand everything for me to be okay. My truth can be my truth whether they fully get it or not. And that's okay.
Totally. Well, it sounds like it's been a really positive thing to find them. So
Hmm.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I know you're a spiritual person and an intuitive. How does that serve you um, personally and also in your coaching sessions, your
Yeah.
spirituality and your intuitiveness?
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit, I think, and even before we started recording. Um, I spend a lot of time in the morning preparing myself for my day, whether it's uh, through yoga and just being present and, stretching, whether it's walking and praying, which I do every single morning, connecting with my God. Um, Through reading the Bible, which I do on a daily basis. It is like breathing for me,
Hmm.
this relationship. But if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to offer to my clients what I can. There is this deep intuition that I have been able to tap into, partly because of my own wounded experience, that I'm able to know or notice and help empower them to find it within themselves. Coaching isn't about fixing a problem. Coaching is about empowering them to come out on the other side from within themselves. So for me, it's being able to tune in, and sometimes I'll just pause in the midst of a session and be like, hold on a second. And I'll take my own deep breath, tune into my own self, and notice what I'm feeling, and then I can reflect that back to them. Is this what's coming up for you? Is it something like this? And
Uh,
usually I'm right, but I don't need to be right. That's not even what it's about. It's me trying to reflect back to them what I'm sensing coming from them. And the only way I can do that is by being in tune with it in myself.
yes. Oh, I love that because so many times and it's all part of being seen. I'm sure your clients probably feel very seen by you because you're able to ask the right questions because sometimes we cannot put words to how we're feeling or what's coming up for us. And the gift of sitting across from someone who is so intuitive to be able to say, is this what you're feeling?
Hmm.
Is, I'm sure, um, amazing for your clients.
I
So
hope so.
I love the work that you're doing, Julie, and I loved this conversation so much. Probably because everything you do really speaks to me. I am a woo person too, and I love all of that. Do you only work with adoptees, or like is that your
Well,
main focus?
right now, my focus has shifted to adoptees. I, for years, worked with addictive behaviors. So I worked with codependency and sexual addiction and alcoholism, and I did that for years. And I still have some residual clients from that, yes. I do have an individual program that I do for people that aren't adopted, where they can go through the 7 phases themselves and work through whatever it is that they are feeling abandoned by, from whatever.
Oh, great.
So I can tailor it for that as well. So I do offer that as something that I can provide.
Oh, that's great. And tell us again how people can find you.
Well, you can find me on my website for sure. If you go to www.cominghometoself.co, but also on Instagram or Facebook, Julie Brumley. Just do a search and you'll find me, and I can send you that information.
Yeah, we'll link it all in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, I'll send you the little things that we've talked about, drop the freebie, all of that stuff, so that people can have it. But yeah,
sounds terrific. Thank you so much. But before I let you go, we have a quick fire round.
Yeah.
So give a shout out to one person or organization that's influenced your adoption journey or the work that you're doing in adoption.
Wow. That is really good. Honestly, I would have to say it's that professor.
I was just going to ask. I was intuitive, and I was just going to say, yeah. I wonder if she's going to say her professor.
I think it's the professor, because she started it. You know what I mean? Like, if it wouldn't have been for her, I wouldn't have even done it.
That's amazing. Do you want to name her?
I don't remember her name.
Remember?
That is
okay, professor.
Yeah. I can see her face. I know what she looked like, but I don't remember what her name was.
What's one piece of advice you would like to share with adoptive parents or hopeful adoptive parents?
Yeah. To do your own inner work first before you actually adopt, or be willing to do it alongside your adoptee. That inner work and whatever it is that you need to heal from will impact them. And it's important for us as parents to do that work too, so that we can understand.
What's one thing you wish every adoptive parent knew before they brought their child home?
Exactly what we talked about at the beginning, that they're not getting a blank slate, that they actually are getting a child who has been taken from their genetics and given to genetic strangers. That's the truth. And for them to understand that what's going to come, they may not be actually prepared for unless they do their own inner work. Back to what I just said. So,
describe adoption in 3 words.
Trauma. Trauma. Oh my gosh, nobody has ever asked me this question. That's really hard. Service. I'm not really sure why that word came to my mind, but it did. Service and compassion.
Adoption is not just a destination. It's a journey filled with love, resilience, and growth. Wherever you are on this roadmap, trust in your path, stay open to learning, and always lead with your heart. You already have everything you need to create a beautiful story for your family, and when the road takes unexpected detours, I'm here to help you navigate every turn along the adoption roadmap. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. If you did, I have a few favors to ask of you. First, please hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, I'd love to hear your takeaways. Please write a review and let me know what you liked. And if you have a question or a suggestion on what you'd like to hear, I'd love to hear that too. please shoot me an email at support@rgadoptionconsulting.com and let me know what you'd like to hear about. And if you have a question, I may just answer it online. Thanks again for listening. Tune in every Wednesday and Friday morning for a brand new episode of the Adoption Roadmap podcast. Until next time, bye-bye.